Bring it on.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Do you want the whole truth? I don't think you're ready.
Governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people.
It's Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Well, welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, and we are plowing through here. Yes, we are. A plug with no electricity. What is going on? Are they not allowing me? All right. So, hope you enjoyed the first hour. I know I did, as I do every night with each and every one of you. Truly, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of things of Nothing But Truth. Thank you very much for your submissions to me in the form of emails and comments on the Facebook page. I'm grateful, and the concerns that you and so many others have spoken about have to do with the economy, the idea that our government, our country, and where it's headed, and even if we will be able to recognize America as we once knew it, and our departure from our founding principles, and then the idea of just getting a job, finding a job. How do we do that in this economy when you have the disincentive to hire, as we've seen with the likes of Obamacare, as we know it, as well as a monetary system that will and has resulted in inflation? That all said, hey, that's real good news there, Chief. Thank you. No, well, understand that God's outside of our economy. He's much bigger than any fiscal cliff or any government shutdown, slim down, or debt ceiling. And it is amazing how, well, we forget that sometimes. So it's not something that we need to make our reality and our life about. And that doesn't mean we don't recognize it and look for ways to fix it, but know that the Lord is all-powerful and all-knowing. Now, Crane, when did you become a preacher? No, Pastor David, in my church, just an amazing sermon, and was talking about that, how a lot of fear gets out there. And one of the fears that people have been feeling, including, I referenced it the other night with Catherine, my lovely wife. We were talking, and I was mentioning petitions and forming organizations in a general sense of how people do them, and what impact the IRS has had on that with the targeting of specific groups. And I will say this. When asked about, hey, do you want to put your name down on something, stand up for, it could be anything from life to smaller government to marriage. Do you want to do that? Do you want to put yourself out there because of the potential for retaliation? And I'm not just talking about the lefty loons, mind you. I'm talking about, and by the way, if you're a leftist and not a loon, don't be offended. Okay? I'm talking about the Occupy Wall Street loonies who go out there and do all sorts of things in their protests that they accuse the Tea Party of doing. But I digress. Point is, I'm talking about the federal government. The government coming after you and how that impacts you and your decisions. How there's a chill wind in the air. I spoke to this a while back in an article on nothingbutTruth.com regarding Fox News and the attempt to suppress and get rid of Fox News. Now, why are you always talking about Fox News? Well, not because Fox is sitting there going, okay, we have a Christian worldview and we're exercising it and all that, and I believe in everything Fox does. I think Fox has got some great talent, by the way, even talent I disagree with. But it's not about the liking or disliking of Fox News. I'm talking about a news organization targeted by the White House in a campaign to shut them down because they didn't like what they were reporting. That is scary for everybody. If you're an American, take off the hyphens, take off the liberal, conservative, the R's and D's. And I remember Bill O'Reilly mentioning he got audited 3 times during the Clinton administration. And I remember talking about it a while back and how that I was reminded of that listening to an O'Reilly interview last night with Ben Carson, Dr. Benjamin Carson, who has been audited by the IRS. Now, why was Ben Carson audited after the prayer breakfast speech? What was really going on there? Well, that's what Bill O'Reilly asked Dr. Carson last night. Roll it.
They wanted to investigate some property, some investment property that I had. And they came and found that all the I's were dotted and all the T's were crossed. And then they said, well, let's just do a general audit of everything. And that was okay. And they said, well, let's look at another year. And that was okay.
Maybe that was just a coincidence, though. Maybe it was.
Well, let's put it this way. I've never had anything before this with the IRS, and nothing has changed.
All right. But do you think they went after Dr. Carson because of his speech? Because he had the audacity at a prayer breakfast to criticize some of the agenda from the Obama administration? Do you think that happened? Roll it. Cut number 5.
Well, whether that was the case or not, the fundamental issue here is the freedom of our citizens is being threatened. I think this is a much more serious thing than Watergate or Iran-Contra or even Benghazi Gate. And, freedom of speech, freedom of expression is one of the major principles of our country.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, it is. And you got to ask yourself if that's the case. Do you think that happened? Well, has the president spoken of this type of idea of punishing enemies? Roll it.
On issues that are important to us, we're going to punish our enemies and we're going to reward our friends.
On immigration. Now you say, Crane, that's, yeah, you're taking the words, but, he's not really a divider. Not a divider on this. And you also mentioned the fact that he has really, what you're saying is the president is not looking to lead all Americans through this type of behavior. That's a pretty aggressive charge, especially in light of the fact of how he's dealing with the government shutdown. Would the president see things your way, Crane, when this type of behavior exists? You criticize the president, you get an audit. Because it's a pretty big leap, Crane, to say the president's targeting his political enemies, especially in light of the way he's handled the shutdown. At least in the president's view, he views he's bent over backwards for the Republicans. Roll it.
During the course of my presidency, I have bent over backwards to work with the Republican Party and have purposely kept my rhetoric down. I think I'm pretty well known for being a calm guy. Sometimes people think I'm too calm. And am I exasperated? Absolutely I'm exasperated, because this is entirely unnecessary.
That was an interview last night. So that's the way the president views. Yeah, he just said that. Yeah, that's okay. Sitting there, obviously, I disagree with a whole host of his agenda and find very difficult to find anything I would agree with. That said, if a man sincerely believes something and going about it, but they always accuse President Bush of being in a bubble. Any conservative is in a bubble. They're out of touch. They just don't get it because they don't really represent us in the middle class. They don't represent the people that are trying to get into the middle class. They're not representing a person who says, you know what, I want more. I want to be able to go from one place in the ladder of economics to another and to provide for my family, provide for my church so I can provide for my church. The idea of advancing, taking my godly gifts and, expanding them. And the president says, you know what? I have not been a divider. I've really reached out Because remember, this is all about leadership, all about America, all about the fact where we live in a constitutional republic with democratic elements, certainly, and we have a president who's leading us. And what he's saying to us is, I'm a leader, and I've really toned down I'm known for being very calm. All right, well, is the president a divider? Roll it.
We're not waiting for Congress, and I refuse to take no for an answer.
I'm itching for a fight on a whole range of issues.
We're going to punish our enemies, and we're going to reward our friends.
They must have been founding members of the Flat Earth Society, with or without Congress. And you see folks waving tea bags around.
It's tempting not to negotiate with hostage takers.
We don't mind the Republicans joining us. They can come for the ride, but they got to sit in back. I understand the desire for a fight. I'm sympathetic to that.
We're going to punish our enemies, and we're going to reward our friends.
It's tempting not to negotiate with hostage takers.
Okay. Well, those are, go back. Look at the record. Look at the record of the supporters getting up. This is all about division. He's done it. He said, in essence, let's go down through the line of division. I'm not trying to bring you down, by the way. I just want to expose this, because once it gets out there, it's kind of like a problem. You want to expose the problem so you can deal with the problem. You can deal with the reality, because what we're being told and the way the mainstream media sets things up, some might think, wow, I must be really out to lunch if I think this guy is the most divisive president we've had, that is attempting to, in essence, not represent us all, but to advance an agenda at the expense of others, regardless of being the American president, of being president of the United States of America, all Americans. He seems the way to advance things is not to convince us that he's right, but to divide us and scare us. And if that's the case, well, why are we even looking at the fact of, the Republicans are to blame for the shutdown? The Republicans got us into this mess. What, really? The Republicans didn't pass a budget? No, they pass one every year. The Senate did for 4. They were supposed to get together. The president was late with his this past year. I don't want to digress to the facts. I just want to bring you up to speed on what the picture truly is. Because what gets me is we are seeing a picture every night of the mainstream media saying, pesky Republicans, how dare they exercise their constitutional authority when it comes to the purse strings. And I'm not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about the truth. And what really chaps me is we are dealing with a reality that is told to us and broadcast to us and promulgated by the mainstream media, those on the left, attempting to say, you know what, this is a conflict between the Republicans and Democrats and the parties, and they just need to get together. You know who's supposed to get them together? The leader. That's being the president of the United States. But when you've gone around and you've made your case to the American people, not based on the substance of what you actually have put out there, like healthcare or like Dodd-Frank or like the stimulus, because the substance tells you, failure. This doesn't work. Unless 2 + 2 = 5, this doesn't work. So you can't go on the substance. What do you have to do? You have to look at the other side and say, you know what? There's a war on women because employers are not helping people pay for contraception and abortifacients. There's a war on women. Yeah, there's a war on women because some people actually have the crazy cockeyed notion that life is not cosmic goo until it comes out of the womb, and then it's life. It's cosmic goo and really not up to 24 weeks, whatever it may be. No, we believe life begins at conception. We recognize that God created that life, that we are not to take that life. And many others in our history of this great republic have believed the same things and have understood the same things. And yet we've taken the idea of attempting to allow the American people to decide and have a say for the protection of the unborn as a war on women. You speak to that and drawing it out. How dare you? You don't want to pay for contraception? You don't want to pay for abortifacients? You're at war with women. Okay, well, how much wacky tobacco do you have to smoke to actually believe that? Well, if you say it enough, and then you take a few things out of context in the quotes of what somebody's saying, or somebody speaks and makes a mistake, while speaking on a very particular issue, you are going to hang it around their neck. You're going to try to drown them because you believe in your argument and the substance of your argument. No, because you recognize if anybody takes their eyes off the distortion and comes back to your record, your actual policies, whammo kablamo, you're done. So as we talk about, well, whatever the topic of the day is, we still don't have answers on Benghazi. We still don't have an economic answer with the policies that have been put forth in a government that spends $5+ trillion and up to 16.7 to 16.9 trillion, and a president that said $500 billion deficit was unpatriotic, and he's given us $1 trillion plus deficits. I mean, every year adding to the debt. We're still not talking about how one deals with the entitlements, how one deals with actually getting the economy going by not looking at America through economic quintiles, but actually looking at them as Americans and saying, hey, if you produce more, we're not going to penalize you. If you use your gifts more, we're not going to penalize you. If you're a small business owner and you have the audacity to start a small business and you're successful, we're not going to penalize you. We're not going to take this incentive away from you hiring others. No, they would actually have to come back and focus on all of that. But you got to make sure we focus on the distortion. And no greater example of not knowing what you're doing, applying these types of policies with really no background in understanding how markets work, as well as understanding that the free market, so to speak, in healthcare hasn't been free. It's been 60% anyway of the government and a third-party system with insurers. We've seen that. But you want to have the government take it over. And in that, you've really hurt what you actually purport to want to help and fix a system to make sure that everybody will have better access to better care and also make it more affordable. Ben Carson was actually asked about that, about the health care plan. Roll it.
Would always tell the residents before I retired is, neurosurgery is very complicated, and you're dealing with people who haven't been trained in neurosurgery, but if you cannot explain it to them in a way that they understand, then you shouldn't be operating on them. And by the same token, we shouldn't be rolling out a program that most people have no idea about. I don't think even the people who propose this understand it, quite frankly.
That's a really irresponsible charge there, Dr. Carson. I mean, propose it, don't understand it? I mean, really? Roll it.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it away from the fog of the controversy.
Now, I got to tell you, I'm not making this stuff up. They didn't read the bill. They didn't have time. Many people haven't read the bill who were part of writing the bill, who were actually voting on the bill. Interesting. And we've seen the impact it has. Hey, you'll be able to keep your insurance. Wrong answer. No, actually, that didn't happen. Premiums will go down. On average, we'll go look across and we'll look. And unless you're coming from a state with extremely high regulation already, your rates are going to go up. Ovik Roy, great analysis. You can check it out on the Facebook page, the link to that. Go to nothingbutTruth.com. Check that out. Here's what I'm saying. We've had this discussion. We're having a discussion. Where do we start? Well, we started with Dr. Benjamin Carson being targeted by the IRS. Targeted? Yeah, after the speech. Okay. Do you have absolute proof that they were targeted? Well, it's curious that happened. But then we do have the attitude of this administration. David Freddoso outlines this in his books. I believe in two of his books he addresses this type of governance and this type of behavior, and it's called gangsta government. Did you just say gangsta? I mean, because really don't. Okay, gangster government. The point is this. We've gone from the punishment of the enemies, the punishment of people who question, the punishment of people speaking out, and while we're here with the fact of Obamacare being what it has been, even by the admission of the people that have passed it and have been the supporters of the Affordable Care Act, because it's not ready for prime time, what do we have? We have that admission. But we can't really focus on that, can we? Because if we focus on that, we'll actually fix the problem. How do you fix the problem when you try to silence people who are trying to identify the problem? That's another question you should be asking. What would Ben Carson do? What would a doctor do, Dr. Benjamin Carson do, to fix the problem? What would be good? Roll it.
Well, I mean, it certainly gives us more time, but I would take that time really to propose better ways of doing it. I can think of multiple ways that could cost a lot less money that would afford people much better health care. If it really weren't about controlling people's lives and controlling their health, I think we could get this solved.
And I will post, actually, and rare I do this, an interview with somebody else because I don't really enjoy the fact that I'll do our own original content with clips and everything. But the point is this: Bill O'Reilly did a great job last night. Bill O'Reilly is one of the best out there, and that has been. I don't always agree with him, but he is an outstanding interviewer and has done a lot for truth in this country as well as this world. And so really no problem with ever talking about Bill O'Reilly and a great interview that he did with Dr. Benjamin Carson. I encourage you to check that out. Now, what does that mean? He says, okay, the delay, yeah, let's take the delay and time to revamp it. Well, to do that, we're going to actually have to engage in the arena of ideas and have ideas and people getting involved. But if you get involved and you find out that you're going to be targeted, that somebody would actually threaten you with an audit, that's pretty scary. And we have that behavior. This is from the president that was supposed to transform politics. In 2004, spoke of the fact that we're not red and blue states, but he acted the exact opposite. So if we know that, what are we supposed to do? I'm speaking to those who think I'm demonizing President Obama when I'm merely pointing out his record and looking at his record. I'm speaking to you when you say, Crane, you don't support Obamacare and you criticize it. You don't, as a Christian, you should want everybody to have health care. Well, first and foremost, as a human being, I do want everybody to have health care. As a Christian, certainly I want people to have health care, and I want them to be able to receive the best quality care for the lowest price, economic cost on them. Yes, I think that works. But as a Christian with a brain and a memory, as well as somebody who has the ability to look up the record of how things work and understanding as a Christian human nature and our fallen nature, and recognizing that in a system of incentives and disincentives and power of government, I have to take that in too. And because I don't believe God is government, I believe God is God, and that we are fallen, and that there should be limits on power, certainly, and checks and balances. That's why I support reform. I only ask to the critics of what I just said, if you support it so much, then support the freedom for people to do it and not the targeting and the oppressive nature of punishing one's ideological enemies. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Live with honor in your life, compassion in your heart. Always keep the faith in Jesus Christ and know He loves you. He created you and you're worth it. AFR Talk.